Welcome to another episode of Board Game Specialists. I'm Carla.
And I'm Melanie.
And today we are going to talk about our MelCon weekend. We did happen to say that we were going to do multi-use cards this week, but we're interrupting that episode to fill you in with our whole weekend of MelCon. Well, part of our weekend. We are going to talk about the top 9 games we played at MelCon because we each played over 20 games. So that would make for a very long episode. So
yeah,
we might as well get right into it. Do you have any honorable mentions, Melanie?
I wrote down my list and I'm trying to think of what else I played that I'm not mentioning on here. So I'm going to say no.
Okay. I just have a couple. One was Wild Serengeti, which I had played before. And so what I did with my list was all new to me games. Is that what I put on here? Because we did play, sorry, there's one that's not all new to me, but we did play some others that I've played before. Wild Serengeti was one of them. I played it once before. And we had a very long game of that at this convention, only because we were all very distracted with talking about other games and looking them up on our phone and talking about upgraded components, and we were ordering food. It was kind of a funny game, but we were all equally veering off here and there, so it was a really good game though. But the other one I want to talk about is called the Deadlies. Now this was designed by Paul Saxberg, I think you call him, that's his last name, which he was there. And so we got to we played a whole day with him on Sunday. And he had said, I'd kind of like to play a few of these games, and he put this one on top. He said, I've designed this game. And I said, well, bring it out. Let's try it. He said, it's a sort of a gamer's version of Uno. So he put it on the table, he taught it to us very well, and it's all about the 7 deadly sins, and those are the suits of the game. And they each kind of do a different thing. And it was actually really neat because you can play not just one card at a time. You can play pairs, you can play triples, you can play sets of cards, you can play colors of cards. It was really neat. And then depending on what you played, you would sometimes call out another player to play a matching card, and if they had it, they would have to pick up some cards, or if they didn't have it, you would have to pick up some cards. I'm kind of forgetting the rules now, but they each did a certain thing, and if we only played it one full game, which is quite quick, there was 4 of us, but it would be really neat, and I kicked myself for not asking him to buy a copy. I'm not sure if he had a bunch there, but I'll have to hit him up at FelCon and try and get a copy from him.
Yeah, actually, he ended up sending me with a copy home. I went home with a copy of his, actually, because I played that game when it was in its prototype form quite a long time ago, and it was great. And I remember I won, so that was nice. But it's nice to see the fully published version of the game now. And I hadn't had the chance to or get my hand on it yet. So he's like, "Do you have the Deadlies?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Well, here we go. Happy birthday."
Yeah. So, no, I should have.
So I was super excited.
Mentioned it after. Me and Cherry were both saying we should have got a copy. We weren't even really thinking, but it was neat. And the fact that he had the original art he had planned for the game was for another friend of ours, Michael, his daughter did the art, and she's just a young girl, 19.
She's an amazing artist, though. She's done a lot of illustration for published books and stuff. So yeah, she'd be a great board game artist too. So that would be really neat. But let's get into our top 9. So what's your number 9? Well, before I would get into that, I just want to kind of give a little bit of the overview of MelCon. So MelCon is a game convention that I normally do around my birthday, but before it was just a gaming weekend at home. This is the first time that we actually rented a hall, kind of opened it up to the public. Now, I didn't do tons of advertising per se. I just kind of posted it that it was happening on different Facebook game groups. And we had 22 people on Friday come. We were about 33 on the Saturday and about 20 on the Friday. So it was good. Actually, the hall was fairly full pretty much the whole time. We had people come in from Lethbridge. Some people came from Leduc. So it was kind of pretty widespread as well. So I would say MelCon was a success. So it was great.
Yeah, it was awesome. Everybody had a blast and met lots of people, gamed with all different types and kinds of people. It was really fun. It was very, very successful, I think.
Yeah, I think everybody's expecting it to become an annual official thing now too. So, but yeah, so yeah. So getting into my number 9, now I ended up playing 25 different games over the weekend. So we made a list of the top 9. So my number 9 was Longshot, the dice game. It's published in 2022 and it's created by Chris Handy. And this one was great. We actually ended up playing it twice back to back because the first time we played something a little bit off, but it's a roll and write where you're racing horses. So you have the dice that you roll, and then depending on what you roll, if it's the dice, like you move that horse ahead, because one is like the color, I don't know, it's like a D8, and there'll be the different horses, and then the other one goes from 1 to 3, and it's how much the horse is going to move by. And you start with having a few bids on some of the horses, but as you play, you can purchase the horse, you can bid on some horse, you can collect kind of like there's like this little bingo area. We never ended up accomplishing anything on that side so much. You can like acquire jerseys and helmets and the whole thing. Like the first time I won by quite a bit. But then we weren't playing it quite right. But I wasn't, because you have like the ability to go and select a wild, and just kind of 3 times you can select a wild, and we were selecting the wild for moving the horses as well, but it's not. It's supposed to just be for the roll and write portion. But this one was so much fun. It was so neat with the horse racing, the bidding, and every time you roll and the horse moves. So let's say the horse number 3 moves. Well, on the horse number 3 cards, there's other horses that might be crossed off on it, and if like number 1 is crossed off, then number 1's going to move ahead as well. And the way that it's worked out, number 1 is crossed off on more cards than the number 8, so there's a higher probability that number 1's going to win. But number 8 pays better if number 8 wins top 3, so then you may want to kind of try to manipulate so that the 8 horse is going to move forward a little bit more and that sort of stuff. It was really neat. As I mentioned, we played it 2 times in a row, and it's definitely one that's on my wish list now. And then all the boards are like dry erase boards, so it was super cool. And that's my number 9, Longshot, the dice game.
Yeah, that's a good one. I had kind of followed that one on Kickstarter, and then I chose not to back it, just thinking it was just, I could get it when it came to retail. And once it did come to retail, I did pick it up, and I had
good for you.
Played that on Mother's Day, and we really liked it. It would be good with a big group. Even it's good at like 3 players. I even play with 2, and it's good. So it's a good one for your collection. My number 9 is a game that I have played several times, and this was Anomia, made in 2010 by Andrew Innes. Now,
I love that one.
Oh, I know. We played it at the time of evening when was it Saturday night? Saturday night, we were getting very tired and goofy, and we're like, we need something to wake us up, because I think it was only about 8 o'clock. We wanted to get, make it right to midnight and play some other, deeper strategy games. So we put this on the table, and it was 3 of us playing, and we couldn't stop laughing. I think Ashley was actually in tears laughing so much. But
how was Ashley at that? Because playing other word games, she just blurts out anything.
Oh yeah, she does. And we all did. Like, it was just hilarious because like, doesn't anomia mean on the tip of your tongue? Like, I think
I think it's like like that. That's called anomia.
Yeah. But it's just a basic game of cards where you each just set down a card, and it has this symbol on it. And if you happen to match someone else's symbol, well, you have a category on your card, and they have a category on their card. And you are trying to say the other person's category, like something in the category, faster than the other one. And that's all it is. Like, it sounds like it's so simple and
it's
wouldn't
simple.
be fun, but it's very
fun. A great party game.
Oh, yeah. And Oh, we had so much fun with that. I think we played at least twice, and then we were like, okay, we're ready to go. We got a couple hours. We can play anything now. But yeah,
Yeah, I
that
saw
was
you
fun.
guys setting that one up, so
Yeah, you might have been playing Longshot at the time, actually. I'm
maybe.
not sure, but maybe. Anyway, that was
Mm,
my number 9, Anomia.
wonderful. So my number 8 is Nidavellir. Nidavellir? I have no idea how
Nidavellir.
to pronounce that. Nidavellir.
Yeah.
It's published in 2020 and it's created by, is it Sergei Laget or Serge Laget? It depends on how you pronounce it. In French, we used to
Hmm.
call it Serge. So I'll say Serge Laget. And this one was interesting because you all start with these little tokens and you got these 3 spots on your board. No, that's the 3 spots and the 2 on the bottom. Did you play that one with me?
Yep, that was the first
Okay,
game
yeah.
we played.
Yeah, yeah.
That,
So you got the 3 spots and then the 2 on the bottom. And it's like, I can't remember what the numbers are. 1, 2, 3, 5. Well, anyways, but one's a 0. And then when you place the top 3 spots represent the 3 parts that's on the table that's going to have cards assigned to it. And you put the token to kind of select when you want to draw from there. So if you put a 5 on the first one, then when that first location comes up, if you've outbid everybody, then you're the first one to pick the card that you want. Um, then you kind of go in order, right? So if you got outbid by somebody else, then you got to wait your turn and you get to draw what's left over there. Now, if you put the 0 is going to take those 2 tokens that are at the very bottom. You flip those over, you add them together, and you exchanged your largest token for one of the combination one. And there's like a pool where there's all these tokens that you can swap for. So maybe I had a 5 and a 2 on there. So then I can actually exchange my 5 and get a 7. So now I have a bigger token that gives me better option and a higher chance of outbidding other people. But everybody's doing this as well. So, and then you can kind of like trade your 7 and your 5, and then you're actually changing that and getting a 13 and if those tokens are ever taken on that little, and it was like a little cardboard rack. It was neat. It looked cool. And if the 13 is all gone, let's say, then you get to go to the next highest token. So sometimes it's worthwhile trying to collect a token when there's a lot of tokens that's been taken because you kind of boot up fairly easily. And then you're selecting these cards, and it's kind of like a set collection, and you're scoring on the total of the cards. And sometimes you can, when you get a set of all, because I think there was 5 different type of cards. And then when you got one of each, you got to get like a special ability card that kind of give you extra things that you could do. It was interesting. I had seen it around quite a bit, like I had heard about it, but I had no idea how it played. And it was interesting, kind of with that token bidding thing was interesting. So that's my number 8, Nidavellir.
awesome. My number 8 is Tichu, made in 1991 by Urs Hostetler. Now this one, Michael, if you knew our friend Michael, he's so
Yeah.
funny. We were playing a few games, and then I kind of walked around and was looking around, and all of a sudden I feel this little tap on my shoulder. I turn around, he's like, "Hi, want to play Tichu?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've always wanted to learn that game." Total his
Tichu is
personality.
neat. Yeah.
So he's like, "Yay," because he loves this game. So him and Paul taught me and Ashley this game, and it's a card game. It's like 1991, so quite a few years old. A ladder climbing game. Now it's played with 4 players, I believe, only, or at least 4 players. And what you do is, just like most ladder climbing games, you can play like sets of cards or groups of number, like, you could play 4 5s down, but you can also play full houses, which is different than any other ladder climbing game I've played, because it's usually just sets and runs that you can play. But there's also 4 special cards in the game. And one is a phoenix, and one is a dog. One is another type of bird. And now I'm forgetting the 4th one. But they have special abilities. And you play with partners, so it's always 2 versus 2. And You can call at the beginning. If you think you're going to win that whole hand and go out first, you can call Grand Tichu. And
Right.
if you do, you get an extra 100 points in the round. Now, if you call it and you don't get it, then you're going to lose 100 points. And then you can also just call Tichu after everyone's been looking at both sets of their cards, because you get kind of 2 hands of cards that you would have to call that before you see your second set of cards. But anyway, you just the first person who has this little one that is one of the special cards, they will go first, and they will start the round. And you just keep going around until somebody wins it. So it doesn't just go like around the table once. You could keep going and going like as many times until you complete the trick. And I've heard people play it before, and they get so loud, and I'm like, what is this game? Like, why is everyone so intense at this game? But I can see it. And it was so funny because Ashley was just sitting there sweating. She's like, oh my God, this is making me so nervous, this game. and she's like, I don't know if I like these. I'm like, I think you like them. You just don't realize you do because you're so nervous and excited about it. But it was funny. We only played a couple rounds because we didn't play up to the, I think, 1,000 or 2,000 points that you would normally play to. But we played a couple rounds, and it was a lot of fun. It took a bit for like the whole first round for me and Ashley to kind of get the hang of it, and then we played another round.
There's a few nuance to it that takes a bit to kind of get used to, with the dog card and the bombs and all,
the bombs too. Like, they'd have to keep saying, okay, well, you could do this to this. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. And I forgot, there was something I forgot, and I had called Tichu, and then I'm like, oh yeah, you had to, for the runs, you had to have at least 5. And I had like 3 sets of 3 runs.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, I got this. And I called it, and they're like, you have to have a set of 5, which they had told me, but I forgot. Yeah. I'm like, oh dang. And so yeah, that one hindered us a bit, but it was a good learning game. But I would like to play a full game of that sometime. That was fun.
Yeah, that one's a neat one. I've played it with them, with Michael, quite a handful of time. And yeah, the first time we played it was such an epic game. Like I did a bomb. Well, somebody played a bomb, and I was able to outplay their bomb, which is like, that's a lot of cards to kind of do that. And it's neat. It's definitely one that you kind of get really excited and involved about. And then you're playing teams, so it's an interesting one. And it's such the
fun part, I think.
Yeah, it's just a card game, right? Like, it's a very small game, but it's such a neat one.
Yep. I like it. I think Cherry, our other friend, would really like it too. She really likes Scout. So I think she would like this one. But yeah. Number 8, Tichu.
Perfect. Now, my number 7 is actually a game I purchased from you at the MelCon flea market. How many games did I end up buying? Like 11 or 12?
12.
Well, it was 12? Yeah, you guys had a...
I'll have to explain this one. We all made a bet, the 3 of us, how many games she was going to buy this time. And I had bid 10 and Ashley had bid 12. And you had bought 11 games, but Paul gave you that last game. And all of a sudden, as we're cleaning up, I see her go, just give him a loony. Just give him a loony for it. And I'm like, what's going on here? And then so she even gave you the loony to give him. Then she's like, yeah, she bought 12. Like, unfair. Cheating going on here. But
she wanted to make sure it wasn't a gift so that she could count it. It was funny. There's no cheating going on. That's funny. Yeah, a whole bet going the weekend is like, okay, well then does game have been gifted count, or game that arrived that weekend count?
Right. Yeah, you got some birthday gifts too. Those didn't count though.
Yeah. And that's so sad because I've got all those new games, and they're all packed up now because I'm moving in the following couple of weeks, and my entire game collection is packed, and it's so sad in my house right now.
Gosh. Bare shelves.
But yeah, so back to my number 7. My number 7 is Dice Town. It was published in 2009, created by Bruno Cathala and Ludovic Maublanc. And this one is so cool because it's Liar's Dice, basically. Like, you have this little cup, and you put the dice in there, and it all has like poker cards on it, and then you shake and you kind of put it down, and you secretly look at what you got, and then you pick one dice to keep, and then the rest kind of goes back, and then you reveal what you're keeping. And then you keep doing that multiple times until you have your full poker hand. But you can, if you wish, spend money to keep more than one dice. If you're getting like, oh, this is actually, I need all 3 of these dice. So you get the one for free and you can spend two money to keep the other ones. Now the game comes with paper money, but your copy had these poker chips, which are a lot more satisfying to play with. Yeah, so you pay the poker chips and then you would get to play. And then depending on what you have, so you would go through, because there's all these different locations that do different actions. And then the first one is the gold mine. So whoever has the most 9s gets to collect that number of 9s in gold nuggets. And you have these little gold nuggets you actually get to put in your little area. And the second one is robbing the bank. So whoever has the most 10s can rob the bank and take on these poker chips. Because every time you pay poker chips, it goes into the what is it, like the horse carriage that's going to refill the bank eventually?
Oh yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah, so and then the next location has cars that you can acquire. And it was so funny because I was playing this with my sister and with Lyle. And they had seen a card because they were stealing it back and forth between the two of them. And they were like at each other's throat over this card because it was pure points. And I think it was like 5 points or something like that. And they're like picking on each other, battling between these cards, trying to steal it from each other. And then I only had the one card, so nobody was bothering me at all. But my one card was worth 7.
Oh, they had noise.
So when I revealed it, they're like, oh, no. So it was funny. And then at the end, you have this one area that you can buy land deeds, which are all worth points. And it's whoever has the best poker hand that gets that one. Now, if you have a matching poker hand with somebody, it's whoever has the sheriff badge that's decides who wins. So, of course, if you have the sheriff badge and you're part of the final round, then be like, oh, I win. So one of the location is kind of battling for the sheriff badge as well. It was neat. I really enjoy this one. So that's my number 7, Dice Town.
Awesome. I really liked the game too. I just could not find a group to play with it. My family didn't really like it and it just never went over. So I'm glad I sold it to you because then I could still play it.
You can still play it. Yeah, there you go.
Awesome. So that was your number 7. My number 7 is Paleo, made in 2020 by Peter Rustemeyer. Now, this game was a game we had bought after Gobfest because we had a friend visit us there, and you all got these door prize tickets. And he had to leave early, so he's like, oh, here, you guys take my ticket. And like you can have the prize or whatever. And we ended up winning a $50 gift card. So we're like, oh, okay, what are we going to do with this? So on the way out of town, Ashley, one of our friends in our group, had stopped at the game store and she's like, okay, what should we buy? And she was listing all these games. And I'm like, oh, Paleo, I've heard that's like, it was, I don't know if it either won, but it was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres, which is the big German award. And so I'm like, oh, it's a cooperative game. Let's try this one. So we got it and we played it. I think we played this right before Anomia. Everybody was kind of tired. And
oh my God. I was having such a hard time staying awake. I was like, I gotta go.
You went and got coffees, right? I think after
you left. You know what? Honestly, what I did, I left and I went and had a 20-minute nap at home.
Oh yeah, that's right. Right.
Because I couldn't do it.
Sleep.
But because I'd gone the whole day, the day before to set up and then played till midnight. But then I got home and we didn't go to bed till like another 2-3 hours. Right. So I was,
you were tired. Yeah. But we played it and you left a bit early, but we did end up winning and beating it just barely. Like the last turn, we either had to beat it or we were going to lose. So we did. And I was just so pumped about this game, but nobody else liked it. Like none of you 3 liked it. So I felt so bad so now we're going to sell it and we're going to try maybe getting Paint the Roses, which is another cooperative game, but it's like an Alice in Wonderland theme. But I really liked it. And I did try it solo because I played it solo to learn it so we could teach everyone there.
Yeah.
And hoping that everyone liked it, but they didn't. So it's too bad.
I'd have to try it when I'm alert. And awake, possibly.
That's what I thought. I'm like, well, maybe we should, but
I found with that one, it honestly was just like, well, here are my cards. and then be like, okay, well, you play that one, and I'd be like, okay, play this one. And I just held on to cards, and honestly, I was so tired, so I was making no decision. I was just like, okay, here are my cards. What do you want?
Well, and how it plays is you split up the deck evenly, like just randomly, and on the backs of your cards you have these different, like you either have a river, a fire, a forest, or you could be fighting a mammoth. It might show a mammoth on the back, but it'll give you an idea of what you could find on the other side of the card. And it'll show you too, it gives you a list of like what could be in the river, what could be in the forest. So if you need wood or food or whatnot. So you choose 3 cards on the back, and then out of those 3 you'll pick one. Like each person will pick one. You'll flip them over, and then you'll look to see if you can do these things, because some of the things you need to have like perspective, or you need to have some like hunting power, or you need to have some craftsmen.
Because we each had a couple characters that had skills.
That have some things. And then you might have tools as well. And you might need some tools to do things. But so then you kind of look at your cards and you're like, okay, I don't have enough stuff for this. But if you help me, and if you have a card that on the bottom has a little help symbol, then you can help someone and you just don't do anything on your card. So you kind of like, you really have to cooperate, because you're like, okay, well, I'll use this to help you. I'll just give this up. And then some of the cards, like you might all be fighting one mammoth and you need all this hunting power. So you might like kind of plan for that turn. Like, let's just build up these huntsmen, and then we'll hunt that mammoth, get like 8 food, and it'll be good for our whole first round kind of thing. But I just found it really interesting. To me, it reminded me of a really light Robinson Crusoe. I'm not sure if you ever played that one. That one's got 1,000 different rules. I like it, but you have to relearn that game every time you play it, because there's so many rules to it and so many different things, because you're building things just like this, where you're building and you need to like get the ideas first and then build the things. But in that one, there's like resources and events and like just way more involved, whereas this one's kind of a lighter version of it. But it was
neat. Like the theme was cool, with the caveman theme, and then the whole goal is for us to make this cave painting that you're adding little sections to as you kind of finished a round, if you're successful with the particular round and have acquired what you needed. So the whole game looked great. The artwork was beautiful.
It was
the theme was very interesting.
Yeah, it could have just been timing of when we played, but it was
could have been timing. It could be that this one, like, honestly, I felt that I was just holding on to the cards, and there was just because it's such a co-op game, that you're not really deciding for yourself what you want to do. It's like you decide as a team, so it's kind of, you have like 1 or 2 people kind of figuring it out, and there's well, we'll use your card for that. So it was just like almost too cooperative, I guess. So which probably makes it a great solo game.
Yeah, it was a good solo game. But near the end of the game, like, we got a lot quicker. Like, we'd flip our 3 cards and you'd automatically look around and you're like, just pick one. So it was like, it got really fast, where you would be like, 1, 2, 3, flip. Yeah, you do this, because we learned the symbols, once you kind of, at first you're like, okay, what does that one mean? What does this one mean?
Right.
So once you get the symbols, it would go a lot quicker, and, you'd kind of know, okay, well, you're doing that, I'll do this, flip. Okay, I'm going to, build or craft something, you're going to do this. And yeah, like, it would be something we almost should try it one more time, but
for sure,
I think
we should. Because I mean, like, the game is gorgeous, and then it had like that little stand, because you're discovering new skills that you can acquire, and so it's interesting. Yeah. I think the biggest hurdle was just how exhausted we all were.
Could be, but anyway, my number 7, Paleo.
Perfect. So my number 6 is a game that my sister purchased from Ashley, actually, from the MelCon flea market. And I regret not being the one buying this one.
But you
should have had 13 games. Well, exactly. I said, okay, every time you come over, you bring this game over.
Yeah, it's cute.
And that's For Garden. It was published in 2020, and it's created by Martin Dolezal. And this game is interesting because you have this tower. And you know what? And I think that's what kind of drew me away a little bit. I was like, oh, it looks so gimmicky.
Yeah.
And sometimes when there's like so much going on the, like, and so, like, it just looks like it's going to be cumbersome. And because you have this base, you have the base, and then you put the first level, and then it has like a little dot, and then you kind of, they all sandwich on top of each other, and it rotates. So, but one side, like each level has a different resource that you need to collect. And the one side has 3, the one has 2, the one has 1, and the one has 0. And you have all these cards that you can utilize, and you have the bottom of the card has kind of the resource requirement in order to kind of do up this thing, because you're painting murals. So you need to fill in these resources in order to paint the murals. So you'd have to kind of put it down in your tableau, basically. Or you can discard the card to do some of the action. One of the action is to assign your resources, and it has like a little wheelbarrow symbol. And the other action you can do could either to randomly draw any resources, or to rotate this tower, and then the symbol will show you which level you can rotate. And you can rotate the very top one, the second one, the third one, or the bottom one. Now, if you rotate the very bottom one, everything on top is going to rotate as well. Now, if you rotate the second bottom one, then the 2 on the top is also going to rotate, but the bottom one's going to stay the same, and so on. And then, so it shows you like, okay, well, I'm going to rotate the second bottom one, and you go 90 degrees one side or the other, so then it's going to change everything. And depending on the card, you either collect your resources from the bottom up, or you collect from the top down, based on what the towers is showing on your side. So you have to have, like, if you play 4 players, it's 1 on each side of this tower. So based on what I have facing me, then I can collect those resources, but I only have room to collect 5 resources. I have a limit of how much resources I can have. And it could be that, oh, great, well, it got spun this way. Now I'm collecting 3 waters. I only wanted 1. So you kind of really got to look and strategize which way you're going to spin it, kind of what you're going to collect based on what you're trying to build. And then once you complete a mural, it gives you like special ability that you can get. So either extra points or extra thing, like an extra holder, so you can hold a little bit more resources. Mm-hmm. And every time you complete one of the segment of the painting, it has a symbol on it, and you move your token up on that one, and they call it like the god's path. There's 4 different god's path. So and you move your symbol up that way. If you ever get at the very end of that line and you complete that symbol again, then instead of moving forward, because you're all the way as far as you can go, you move everybody on that line back 1. And you can do that to a point where you actually knock them off the line completely, and they don't get to score that God's line. So there's a little bit of take that, but it was so cool. It was so neat. And yeah, no, it was neat. And then every time you complete like a second segment of that, the painting, then you get to recollect all the completed ones from that same mural. So the bigger the mural, the more times you're going to score, but the longer it's going to take you to get one of those special ability tiles that you can earn. It was so interesting. I really enjoyed that one. So that's my number 6 for gardens.
Nice. My number 6 is Succulent, made in 2020 by J. Alex Kevern. And this one was a game brought by Ashley, and she taught me and Cherry this game. This is a tile laying, like mini economic game almost. So you have this board in front of everyone, and that you're placing out these, they're called gardens, but they're just little rectangles, either like 1, 2, or 3 plot, and they have little holes in the middle. And so the board has all these flowers on it, and so you're placing them on top of those flowers, and then you're placing your personal flower to claim that tile, kind of thing. And you get the little flowers underneath, or the petals of the colored flower underneath. So you'll take these petals, and what you're using the petals for is you're trying to collect these cards. So there's like a row of cards that you can collect, and you can set your little garden tool on it to not really save it. You just kind of put it there, and then if you do happen to buy it after with your petals, then you get this blue kind of crystal-y petal that you can place on another part of your board that is like points at the end of the game, or if you fill up like a whole plot of it, you'll get another little bonus as well, which is a light blue petal that can be a wild anywhere on there. So it's really neat. I guess it isn't an economic really, because you're just buying the cards and it's for points after. But it's neat because you're trying to also get the scorecards that you're buying will give you end game points. So they'll give you like an objective that you'll want to do throughout the game. So you want to make sure you're kind of starting that objective, and then you get the card, and then you kind of want to fulfill it on the board. Like I had one that wanted connected flowers, all my flowers to be connected, kind of. Mm-hmm. And I had quite a few that were connected. I think Cherry had one that they wanted to be on the outside border, so she had to kind of build her gardens all along the outside, and just different things like that. Some just scored points for however many orange petals you had on all your scoring cards or things like that. It was a really pretty game too. Like it had beautiful like art on the board, and just even the cards were really nice. The color spectrum was really neat. And then your little board on the side where you're covering up all these little boxes of flowers in order to gain points at the end of the game was neat too. It was like I would say like a light game, but really neat. And I think it was like a 45-minute game maybe. So just perfect time. And that was
Succulent,
that's a good time
frame for a game.
Yeah.
Perfect. Number 6. I didn't realize this game was there. My number 5 is Imhotep. Imhotep, published in 2016 and created by Phil Walker Harding. And I played this one with my sister and Lyle again. On the last day there, my sister was the only day that she attended, so we tended to play a couple of games. And then that was the only day that Lyle could attend as well, because his son was graduating that weekend. So, and we ended up playing these few games now. And Lyle's a huge Egyptian theme fan when it comes to board games. So he's like, yeah, I want to try this one. So, and it's so cool because you have these little cubes. Like each player gets their own colored cubes, but they're not like tiny little cubes. These are big chunky cubes, and there's like white, brown, black, and gray. And you have these cubes, and then you're going to be stacking these like, so first you have like the quarry that has all the cubes, and then you have your little section where you've collected some cubes, so you can collect up to 3 at a time to put in there. Now you can only ever hold 5 at a time. So if you run out of cube, then you got to spend an action to bring 3 more cubes in. And then on your turn, you're going to put a cube on a boat. And each round, you have a card that's going to flip over that shows how many boats are available that round. And there's like a one spot boat. There's some boats that have spot for 2 cubes. There's boats that have spots for 3, and some that have spot for 4 and 5. And so the rounds will kind of flip up and be like, okay, well, we have this boat, and that boat, and 2 of these. So you kind of see what boats are available to you that round. And on your turn, you can place a cube, or you can move the boat. You can go and dock the boat on one of the location. You can only do that when you've reached the minimum amount of cube that is required for that boat. So with the 2, as soon as you have 1 cube in there, you can ship that boat. The 3 one, you need to have at least 2 cubes, and like so on, right? So, and it's also important on where you put your cube on that boat. You can put it in the middle, you can put it in the back, you put it in the front. But once the boat ships, depending on where you go, it's going to be placed the first one in front first on the different location. And if you're going to the pyramid, like one of the locations you can go is the pyramid, well, depending on where in the pyramid this cube is placed, it's going to score different points. So the base layer at the very middle, that one score 4 points. It's like, it's worth the most. The peak, the first one at the peak of the pyramid is worth 4. Anything after that is just worth 1 point. So you're trying to kind of position your cube so you get access to the higher numbered points. And then you could see it's like, okay, well, I'm putting this one there, and then, so that means when I get to the pyramid, I can score here and here, and that's going to give me the 3 and the 4, so that's going to be 7 points, so that's amazing. And then before your turn comes, somebody goes and takes that boat and ships it, even if they don't have cubes on it. If the minimum number of cubes on the boat, you can ship it somewhere, and then I'm going to send you to the obelisk, so you're just building the tower, and whoever has the tallest tower scores so many points, and then second place and third place and so on. But maybe you're already in the lead there, so you really didn't want to put your cubes there, but they can ship, like, so there's a little bit of take that in that aspect of it where you can kind of mess with people's plan, because like, well, I think you're building that to do that, but I'm going to send you at the temple here. And then actually Lyle at the temple, he has, because at the temple is the biggest the cluster you can do with your cubes, the more points it's going to be worth. And he kept blocking my cluster, so I only had like 3 stones of 1 because he kept building around me, and in the meantime he's got like 17 cubes in his cluster. So it was really neat. It's a super simple game. The tiles are like, we played on the level, well, on the A side. There's a B side that kind of adds a bit more complexity to it that I haven't tried yet, but that's my number 5, Imhotep.
Yeah, I really wanted to try that game. I think I was in another game when you started it, and I looked over, I'm like, oh, there it is, they're playing. So I kind of popped over in between turns to check it out. It looks really cool. Awesome. My number 5 is Keyflower, made in 2012 by Sebastian Bleasdale and Richard Breeze. Now this one you taught us. I have been wanting to play this game for a long time. We played a 5-player game? Yeah, 5-player game of this. And I remember you had said that it could go long if there was a lot of AP in there. So I was a little nervous. I'm like, when the 5th joined, I'm like, oh no, this could be the whole morning. But we actually played it pretty quick.
It was a good group. This is the fastest that game has played for me.
Yeah? No, it was neat. So you have these tiles that are placed out in the middle of the table, and you each have a starting like farm. Is it like, or like a homestead?
There's like a little house. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then you have a bunch, you start with a bunch of meeples. And so on your turn, you're just bidding for these tiles, or you're either bidding or you're placing a worker on to use the tiles. And so by bidding the tiles and winning them, they will be added to your little homestead, and you'll have to place it around, like it has to match, water to water or like a trail to trail. But it's so neat because you can bid, and then if someone outbids you, you can take those meeples back. They have to stay together, but then you can place them somewhere else and bid on another tile, or you can use another tile. If somebody already had 1 meeple there, you could put 2 on and use it. And at first, the first couple of rounds, I was just like, I don't even know what I want. Like, I don't know what to get. What's good to get, So I just kind of went through the motions and got a few things, and then it started to click. It was like, okay, yeah, where's the wood? He's got the wood. We got to go get the wood over there. Or you try and bid on the wood tiles, or like depending what resource you needed. And then there's also these boats that you're going to bid on, because everyone will get a boat at the end of the round, and whether you've bid on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, that'll be the order in which you get to choose the boats. Now, those always had all the meeples on it that you would use for the next round. The other way you could have meeples for the next round is if you had them on your home tiles, if you placed them on there to use them, or if somebody else placed them on there to use them. And the funniest thing in this game is when you build up this really cool tile and you flip it, and it's, just really juicy, and you're going to get 3 gold on it. And then as soon as you flip it, some jackass grabs their little meeple and puts it on and takes that gold, and you're like, ugh. But there's going to be 4 turns before it comes back to you. Someone's going on there. So you kind of look around as soon as someone flips a tile, and you're like, oh, yep, I'm going there.
Yeah.
It's a really neat game. I really liked it. And I would love to. You can't really play it with 2, though, could you? It'd have to be like a 3 or more.
I think you can.
Yeah?
And I don't know if I've ever tried it at 2. I've always kind of tend to play this one at a slightly higher play count, just because that's the way it worked out.
It would be a better game with at least 3 or 4, for sure. But
it was neat, definitely, because there's so many people outbidding you or utilizing so it's kind of, it adds to that, for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to everybody was kind of after everyone, so it was like not, just pick one person, pick it on. You just wanted what you wanted, so then you would go for it. And, it's really
well, because when you're playing, meeple on the person's tile, they get those meeple for the next round. So you are in a way helping them, right?
Yeah.
So you're not doing it unless it's helping you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know sometimes there's one round I didn't win a tile, and the next round I'm like, okay, nobody wants that tile. I'm just going to get it and flip it, and then it will be juicy, and people will just come to this tile. And they did eventually, because I'm like, I don't know how else to get the stuff I need, but there's ways around it. You can definitely, there's definitely strategy. You can manipulate things and get things that way. But yeah, it was really
because it's an engine building as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that's my number 5, Keyflower.
Wonderful. So my number 4 is Creature Comforts, published in 2022 by Roberta Taylor. And we've played this one again, and I think we were 5 players, so we're at the max player count. And my thing with this one is, like, I find that sometimes there's too much downtime, and I find it a little bit difficult, like, too long to play. And it definitely played long. And it probably definitely had a lot of downtime. But being that we were at MelCon, and there was so much going on all around, that when it wasn't my turn, I'm like looking at the other games, I'm taking pictures of the games. So it didn't feel so like time consuming this time, just because I was so distracted elsewhere at the same time when it wasn't my turn. And actually turns out I've been playing this game really wrong.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we played with Paul, and Paul had played, I believe, with Roberta on the prototype copy. And he's like, oh, I didn't know the rules said that. And we're like, oh, I don't know. I've been playing it the way it was taught to me. So, because we were doing that, you could put the worker down, and then wherever you have your worker, you can send the dice there, but you could activate that spot multiple times if you had enough dice to do it. Apparently, you can't really do that.
Oh, I didn't know. I don't think I played that way.
Yeah, no, I think that was the very first game we played when you were at Gobfest. Yeah, so I was playing that wrong, which probably lengthened the game as well.
Oh, yeah.
Now this turn we played it the way I was teaching it. Just Paul was like, well, as long as we all play the same way, that's fine. But so I'm gonna have to read the rule book properly, because I think a few of the rules that I have been taught was a little wrong. So but I mean, Creature Comfort is such a pretty game.
Yeah,
it is a very pretty game. All the components, the wooden bits, the little worm that's the first player marker, like, and you have all those little wooden meeples that's like each your different animal that you are. You got your custom dice, and then the village dice that everybody can use. And it's interesting because it's a worker placement. You roll your 2 personal dice, then you select which locations you want to potentially activate, because you don't have all the information. You only know what these 2 dice are going to be. You don't know what the village dice are going to be yet, so you kind of pick some spots to be like, well, hopefully I'll be able to do this. And then you roll the village dice, and everybody's going to use the same village dice with the same numbers on their turn. And that's where it takes a little long. But because we were like able to activate the same spot multiple times, we were doing a lot of actions the way I was playing it, so that's probably made it even longer. But this one is fun. Honestly, to me, it reminds me a little bit of Lord of Waterdeep in a way, because you're collecting all these resources, because you got these comfort cards you're trying to complete, and once you've collected enough, you can spend and complete these comfort cards, and it has a touch of that Lord of Waterdeep feel for me. But that's my number 4, Creature Comforts.
Awesome. I didn't get a game of that in this weekend, but we did play that at Gobfest, and I liked it. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, my number 4 is Pickomino. This is made in 2005 by Reiner Knizia. Now, this game I had just purchased right before MelCon. I had bought it. I'd been looking at it for a while. I'd seen a bunch of reviews on it, and actually, I listened to another podcast called 5 Games for Doomsday, and probably 4 people that I've listened to, that was one of their games they were taking to the cabin, which is, Doomsday, you can only take 5 games. It's a really cool podcast if you want to listen to it. But
I will.
Yeah, anyway, so Reiner Knizia, the designer, and some others had also chose this, but he chose 4 of his own games and 1 other game. But this was one of them he chose. And so I'm like, okay, well, this must have some staying power. So I'm going to have to try this out. So I ordered this from Amazon. It was the same price as anywhere else. You couldn't find it in my local game store, but like ordering online. So, and I wanted it quick so I could have it for MelCon because I thought this will be the perfect game at the end of the night to play. It's just silly fun, right? So what you do is you have these little dominoes and they have a number on them and some worms on the bottom. And you line them up. They go from, I think, 21.
Game. Yeah, I saw you guys play that.
Yeah, 21 to like 36, I think. And then you have 11 and a 13. So they're all lined up. And what that is the barbecue, and you're barbecuing worms. This is the theme of it, really. And then you have this handful of dice, and on your turn you roll these dice, and you group them into like numbers. So you have like a group of 5, 4, 3, and then you might have rolled some worms as well. And so then you can choose one group. So like say you chose the 3s, so I put those aside. I can roll the other dice, and then I have to choose a different number. I can't choose 3s. I have to choose a different number. And what you're doing is you're trying to get like a big number so that you can take one of those dominoes up there, which is the worms, right? And the lower numbers have like only a couple worms, but the higher numbers have big, like 4 or 5 worms on them. So you would like to get the big numbers if you can. But the other thing is on these worms, are these little special animals. You have one that is like an apple, and that counts as 3 worms at the end of the game, because the whole idea of the game is at the end you will count your dominoes however many worms are on them, not the numbers, just the worms, and that's how you win the game, is having the most worms. There's also a little tiny worm, a little red worm, and he's worth a worm, because in order to take a domino, you have to have rolled a worm. So if you have him on your domino, then you always have a worm and you don't have to roll worms. And he's worth 5 points as well. And then there's like a little weasel, and the weasel, if you have him, you get to re-roll 1 dice. So even if you bust, because the way you could bust is if you've got your 3s, your 4s, and your 5s, and you roll more dice, and say you only rolled a 3, 4, 5, well, then you bust. And you would have to put back a domino that was on top of your stack back into the barbecue. So you lose it completely. But there's another little one, the golden dice. So this just adds another dice that you can roll. And then there's a hen, and the hen will sit on your domino and he'll protect it, because you can steal from other people. If you roll the exact amount that's on top of their stack, because you only stack them, you don't like lay them out, right? You just keep stacking them on top, and the top one's vulnerable. Well, if you have this little hen, well, she protects it. So if somebody has the number, they'll just take your hen instead of your domino. But it's just, it sounds kind of stupid, but it's actually really fun, because you just go around, and then after a while you're like, oh, I'm not even going to go for those. I'm going for your domino, because like Cherry would have this big stack of dominoes. So we're just trying to get hers away from her, because if we just keep getting these little ones, we're never going to win. It's just fun. It took us a while too, because you go around and then you're collecting them, and then you're stealing from them. So then your pile's getting higher, and then all of a sudden they're ganging up on you because you've got this stack of dominoes. I did terrible. I had 2 or 3 dominoes the whole time. They were like having these stacks, and I'm just trying to steal them. And then I just kept busting, because I just kept trying to go for it, trying to get these high ones or steal theirs. But it's really cute and fun. And that's my number 4, Pickomino.
That sounds interesting. Yeah, I saw you guys had it all set up. And I've seen it around. Like, it's one that's definitely been talked about.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen it at conventions, but I had to see.
Well, not at conventions, I guess online, like on different YouTube videos and stuff. Yeah. So nice. All right. Well, my number 3 is Awkward Guests. So I played Awkward Guests for the first time at Gobfest and loved it. And I was like, okay, I want this game. This is like right up my alley, and I just really enjoyed it. And then a friend of mine ended up selling it, and I was like, okay, great, I'll buy that from you. She said, perfect. Do you want me to bring it to FallCon, which is in August? I was like, no, I want it for MelCon. I'm coming to get it. So
that's years away.
Yeah, that's way too. I can't wait that long. So went and collected Awkward Guests. We ended up playing it twice at MelCon. We played it the Saturday night, and I think we were like 7 players. And then we ended up playing it again on Sunday, and then we were playing it 3 players.
I think
Is it Friday night?
Yeah, because we weren't there Friday. I think Ashley.
Oh, okay. So then it was Friday and Sunday that I played it. Yeah, but
Yeah.
the Friday then it was like a big group. We were like 6, 7 people playing it, and then the second time we played it, we were 3. And honestly, I enjoyed it at both player counts. It was neat. And with this one, what's like I use the app so that kind of generates a scenario, and you kind of pick the difficulty level that you want, and it'll bring out a bunch of cards. And the longest part of setting this game is just going through and pulling all the cards that you need to have the scenario. And then you shuffle all these cards out, and then you kind of hand out 6 to each players, and those are the beginning clues that they have. And you can take turn making offers. So you have this big sheet of paper that's behind like a screen, and you take note of all of your clues that you've gotten on there. As that, okay, well, the police says that it wasn't a bladed weapon that caused a murder, so you can cross off all of these weapons, and we'll know that this one is in the shed, so you can cross that off in the shed. You can cross that off in this room, and so you're kind of starting to build the picture. And then you take turn making offers, saying, okay, well, I want to know about the sisters in the kitchen. And then people will go through their cards and look at what has a clue on that. And it's indicated on the top corner what the clues are about. So, okay, well, this is about that. So put that face down, and you put like a value on it, because each card has a different value to it, but from 1 to 3. And honestly, it was funny. We were playing it. I was like, well, I'm not giving you a 3. That's a really good clue. And so you don't have to give the clue, but you can. But if you don't, you're not going to get clues back. So you could be like, okay, well, I have 2 cards here with a total value of 2. So then they can give you 1 card that's worth 2, or 2 cards that's worth 1 each, or they can overpay if that's what they have. But then you trade clues. So then they get your card, you get these new cards, and you note down these new things. Mystery of the Abbey does that, where you're swapping clues as well. And you go around and you can take a guess as to try to solve it. But if you solve it, you cannot take a guess the next round if you guessed incorrectly. So you want to make sure you're kind of pretty close to being accurate, because you're going to have to go a whole other round if you are wrong. And it was so neat. It's one I really enjoy. I like the deduction, solving the mystery part of it. And that's my number 3, awkward guests.
Yeah, that's a really fun one. My number 3 is Merchant's Cove, made in 2021 by Johnny Pack, Carl van Ostrand, and Drake Villarreal. Now, this one is a new game that came out just at the end of last year. Well, I mean, it could have came out earlier somewhere else, but I think here it came out at the end of 2021. This is a really interesting game, because what you're trying to do is you're all trying to sell to these merchants on these ships that you're bringing into shore. But how you do that is you each have your own little way of, or your own things that you're selling to them. You're all playing a different game, in the end trying to sell to the same merchants, but you have these player boards, and one person, like the blacksmith, is using dice, and he's manipulating she's manipulating these dice and turning them into goods somehow. I played the alchemist, so I was making all these potions with marble. So it was like a mini potion explosion game almost that I was playing, and I was trying to manipulate them in order to make all these potions. And Ashley was playing, I think it was pirates she was doing, where you had to move these pirates around and collect treasures, and that's what she was selling. Was, I don't know if they were stealing these treasures or whatever, but that's what she had to sell. There's all like different types of player boards as well. There's one where it's like you're playing a little roll and write. That one I think is called the Oracle. There's an innkeeper, I'm not sure what they do. There's a little rancher where you're like planting all these eggs and they have to hatch, and then you're selling these dragon eggs to these merchants. But what happens is you have all these boats lined up, and on your turn you get to do like something on your board to like help you make your potions or whatever you're going to sell. And then you get to move, chances are, because you're using time as a resource as well. So depending what you do on your board, you'll use 1 or 2 time. And that's how you'll move around the board. And in Nova Luna style, whoever's in the back gets to go next. right? And so sometimes you might pass this little icon with a meeple, and then you'll get to add people to the boat. So you'll just pull them randomly out of a bag, depending on the color. You can put them on wherever you want the boat. Now, then once a boat is full, you'll slide it to the top, and there's different ports. There's 3 boats on one side and 3 on the other, and the 3 on the left can only go to the 2 ports on that side, and the 3 on the right can only go, or maybe it's 4 and 4, and they can only go to the 2 on the right. So the left one is like you want small goods, and then in the middle you want big goods, and then beside it you can have either or. And then there's also a black market where you can sell any of the goods, but you have to take I can't remember what it's called. They're like these little skulls that are negative points that will be multiplied by however many of these like little gray guys come to shore. So you don't want many of those, because the more gray people, like say there's 6 at the end of the game, however many of these little, I think there's skulls on the card you have, you multiply it by that, and that's the negative you get. So you don't want too many of those, but the black market is the easiest place to sell because you can sell anything there. I mean, they have to be to the right colors because you have to sell a red good to a red meeple. So it's really interesting because you just want to try out everybody's player board, like, and try a different faction each time. The only thing is that each board, it's not like a real complicated thing. It's a real simple thing. So I don't know how much replayability there will be after you've tried all of them, because I'm not sure like it holds enough. I'm not sure what the word is, just like enough interest in each one, like that it's like deep strategy in each game. Like I think they're all pretty simple.
How many different
games.
Characters are there?
Well, the base game comes with 4, but then I think you can get 4 more, I'm thinking right now. And I mean, I'm sure it's just endless, expansions that would come. And they might end up making, like a little bit heavier ones. But it's kind of a tribute to, like, I think these designers are sort of, this isn't the only reason they did it, but they did it to kind of show, like, look what we could do. We've made every kind of mechanism possible and put it in this game, but it's all separate games, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat, and I'm interested in playing more for sure. I hope it'll hold up in replayability. I'm not 100% sure, just depending how, how exciting each player board is to do. But
and it depends on your collection too. Like, honestly, with the size of the collections we have.
Oh, I know. It's not.
If I play a game 4 or 5 times, that's a lot.
Yeah.
When you got so many games.
Yeah.
But how was it to teach with everybody playing differently? And
well, you have your own little rule book, and it's not very big. Like, it's 2 pages, so you can just refer to it. Like, she kind of taught us like roughly, and then I would be like, oh, okay, well, I can actually do this, and like, because then once you're like putting all your marbles out to the potions, then I can take one action to like brew them all into like goods, right, or into potions that I'm going to sell. So it just depends on what each one, like I didn't actually know what Cherry was doing with the dice. It looked kind of interesting, and I love dice. But there was another faction. What the heck was it now? I can't remember what the 4th base one is, what they did.
It was like a time travel one? Or?
Yeah, it was a time thing. You're moving these discs around with time. It looked kind of neat too. That one, I think she did say, was a little more complicated. So there's probably like varying degrees. And I mean, it would be neat because someone who knows all the faction could take the hard one, and newbies could play, and they could say, like, you take this easy one, and then it's equal. Like, you'd have an equal chance of winning.
The skill equalizer, yeah.
But such an interesting game. Like, I'm looking forward to trying.
So is it simultaneous play, or?
No, you take a turn, and you do an action, and you take your time. But it's really quick actions. Like, you can only do a couple things, You can also hire these people, too, that there's a little slot where you can slide them, and then after you've filled that up, or you can do it any time, you can go to another spot and then do all those actions. So it kind of let you multiply, you build a little engine there, which is kind of neat. But yeah, so that was one of the newer ones I played, and that's my number 3, Merchant's Cove.
Nice. So my number 2 is Foundation of Rome, printed in 2022, created by Emerson Matsuuchi.
Yeah.
I am sorry for butchering people's name. I have a gift. This one, I mean, I've seen it a lot. Like, it was recently released by Kickstarter, so everybody's posting pictures about it, and oh my god, talk about an overproduced game. Yeah. This isn't a game like a game box, it's a game cube. Like, it's a whole huge cube, and you take the lid off, and then you have trays and trays and trays to pull out. And it's I think it retails like over $300.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, who would spend that much money on such an overproduced game? And granted, yeah, it looks cool, but really? And it plays, honestly, fairly quick for what it is.
It's great.
And it is so good. Mm-hmm. And I have to take it all back because I was like, oh, that's why. But it's neat. And it plays a little bit like it has like a base from Chinatown, if you've ever played Chinatown, where you have this big grid and you're giving these cards that have these numbers. And this is the thing. It has a big grid and you're getting like, okay, well, A5, you get card A5 and you get card J7 and you have all these little square and you put these little tiny towers on there to show that those are yours. And if you can ever get clusters together, then you can start putting your bigger buildings as well. And then you can upgrade your buildings. So I was like, okay, well, I have my little tower, but I'm going to upgrade to this building, and this building earns coin. So and it earns me 1 coin whenever I collect money or whenever we score at the end of an era. And then it's like, okay, great. Now with these coins, because the next, like, you start with a handful of these deeds, I guess, land deeds. But then the rest of the time, these cards are flipped up and you have the option to purchase them. Now, they go from like 2 coin, 3 coin, 4 coin, or so on to like 8 coins or something, 10 coins or something like that. And so you'd be like, oh, okay, I want that one. Ooh, 10 coins, that's pricey. I'm going to wait. Because every time a deed gets purchased, they all slide down and they become more and more affordable. So you have a bit of push your legs, like, okay, well, I'm going to try to wait till it gets like to 4 or 5 coins. And hopefully nobody else buys it. And then you're looking on the boards like, oh no, he might be interested too because he's kind of close. So it has that interesting aspect of it. And then you'll have your cards or your buildings and towers and so on and they're all like big chunky 3D things and it looks amazing. And then okay, great, I got a cluster of 2 that I had built this building on. Now I've obtained this other one, so now I have a cluster of 3, so I'm going to upgrade these buildings. So you put it back on your board and now have this building that gives me population now. And you score gold and you score population each round. And then you can actually also play buildings that's going to score for what's around. It's like, well, I see that you've put a population of 12 here and a population of 12 here. So I'm going to put my little tower in between both of those. That's going to score 1 point for each population that this building is touching. So now I'm scoring 24 just off the population you guys have done. And it was interesting. It was so interesting. So neat. And yeah, the look of it is amazing. $300, I would have to seriously consider. But honestly, knowing me, I probably would if it came. But it was neat. But oh my god, like the real estate that this game will take, because it is big and it is pricey and it is so overproduced, and it was so good though. And it played in about 45 minutes. And then the smaller player count, then you get like a smaller portion of the grid. Then higher player count, you get a bigger portion of the grid. So it scales well. I'm assuming I only played it that one time, and I think we were 5. So 4 or 5, I can't remember. But yeah, it was great. So that's my number 2, Foundation of Rome.
Yeah, that is a good one. Cherry she kickstarted that. I was going to get her to bring it to MelCon, and then I'm like, oh, that's kind of a lot to just keep in the truck. But it ended up being there. We never did get to play it that weekend. But yeah, I think it's like a classic. It's one of those, they could literally have made it as a cardboard version and just it would be just as good. But that adds to it for sure. Like, it's just beautiful.
It definitely makes a statement, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
My number 2 is Trapwords, made in 2018 by Jan Brezing, Martin Hrabalek, and Michael Pozarek. Now, this was one I had bought. I think I bought that at Gobfest. I think I got it used there. And
I think so.
You had talked about it. I think I got it at the flea market. You had talked about it a couple times and had said like it's basically a modern version of Taboo, which is a game that I played so many times as a young adult. We played with couples. Just love that game. Absolutely love it. Well, this one's a little bit different. It has the same like backbone to it where each team has a word that they're trying to describe to their team, but they can't use certain words. The only thing is, like in Taboo, you have this list of words you can't use. While you're looking at the word, you can see this list. But in Trapwords, the other team makes up the Trapwords, the words you can't use. So you move along this track, and the first turn, I think it's just one word you write down.
Depends on what tiles you put down, but yeah, so it depends on the number on that tile. I did the easiest tiles to start.
Oh, okay. So if we were on number 1 and it was one word we had, and I think we both got past there, but then me and Ashley didn't get past the next one because the other thing is it's not just that, it's not just moving up and then you have all these words. You can have these monster cards that are on some tiles. And then you have to, like what we ended up on number 2, we both did, both teams. Yeah. Mel and Cherry played me and Ashley. And we had this one monster that was like, you can only describe the word in nouns. It was so hard. And I can't even remember the word I had to describe, but we never got past there. So we were constantly describing these words and only being able to use nouns after that. And you guys got up to the 4th or 5th level, but then you had this monster that doubled the words. So we got to write 10 words down and they still got it. But oh my gosh, it was awesome.
It's funny with those, like you gotta say, okay, well, I think they probably would use these words, so I'm gonna use these really weird descriptions. Yeah. So that I'm not, I can't remember what a final word was, but I'm like, okay, how can I say this?
The final word was lime. And we wrote down Corona. No, we didn't write Corona because you couldn't use that word. We wrote down like anything you could.
Something else, and we ended up saying tequila.
Yeah.
And it wasn't on the list.
Something else. Yeah, we didn't write tequila. Because I think I was thinking we can't write Corona, so we can't write tequila.
Because she put tequila and salt.
Yeah.
And I'm like, lime?
Yeah. We had all this big list of like fruit and citrus. And, oh yeah, it was funny. But I think like with my family, I don't know if I'd add the monster cards in, but even just the fact of having one word, then 2 words, then 3, and then the person who's at the top, like it's kind of a catch-up mechanism. You get to write more words that they can't say, so then you can possibly catch up. I think it's really neat. And yeah, that was my number 2, Trapwords.
Yeah, Trapword was great. I enjoyed playing that one for sure. Now, my number 1 is also our first crossover, and that's Keyflower, published in 2012, created by Sebastian Bleasdale. I love this game. It's so good. And it's funny, every time I play it, and even though we play with like sometimes people that have a lot of IP and it takes a long time, I still just love how it all comes together. And it is so neat how you have to have the right color meeple to bid. And then once you kind of place the meeple, it's like, haha, this now is now blue. And then it's like, darn it, I only have yellow left, so. And then building this little village in front of you and then trying to create this little engine, but knowing that, and then it's like, okay, great, I'm going to do this. And it's like, oh, darn it. And then JP went and put his worker on there. Now you can still do the action, but now you have to overpay and put 2 meeple on it in order for you to activate it, which limits the other actions you can do. It's so, honestly, I find this game is so brilliant the way that it's designed. I love it. Now, I know Michael is saying, like, Glenda refused to play this game. This is a game that she will flip the table. And it's just, and I think it's the fact that you're building all this and people can come and use it. Like it can be aggravating. Oh, it can be aggravating. Yeah, it's kind of, I'm going to put it right here. Hopefully nobody notices. And then I was like, oh, darn it. So It's great. And it's so neat with because when you bid and the way you keep track of which meeple are yours is the side of the tile that is facing you, that's your tile. So any meeple on that side, on any tile, those are your bids. And then as people outbid, then you can move them and then okay, but that's the side that's facing me, so those are my meeple. It's clever. It's such a cleverly, smoothly designed game. Like it's nice. And it's made me want to get the rest of the Key series because there's a whole Key series. Now I got Keeper that I haven't played yet, but there's Cathedral, there's I don't know, there's a bunch of other ones and I'm totally drawing a blank now, but I think I want them all.
Keyflower. There was a guy selling them on the used site. I think a whole bunch of them.
Oh, geez.
Which one?
Of course you tell me this now.
Maybe they're gone.
But yeah, so that's my number one, Keyflower.
Awesome. My number one is Fabled Fruit by Friedman Freeze in 2016. And this is just basically a card game. But and I'm not a huge fan of Friedman Freeze. I haven't really found a game of his that I loved. I want to because it's so freaking cool. All his games are green. Green is my favorite color. At conventions, I've never seen him at one. He's usually at the Germany ones. He dresses in green. Head to
nice.
toe, hair's dyed green. Like he is just all about the green. But his games are always green, and they usually no, they don't start with a letter, but they
normally have an F.
Do they?
If not in English, in their German names.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right. That's right. I was going to say F, but then I'm like, well, no, Power Grid. But anyway, so what this one is it's a deck of cards, and it's actually a campaign game that you can play over a series of games, and you can save your game from time to time. So how you start is you start with 6 of the little decks, and there's I don't know how many, like 50 of them, and you'll have 4 cards in each, and you place them out, and you have a little animal meeple, I think it is, or maybe it's just a normal meeple, and on your turn you go to one of these decks, and the decks each have all these different types of fruit on them, and they have an action. So you'll go onto the deck if you don't have any fruit yet. I think actually you start with 4 different fruit, and the fruit is just cards. So you could have like a pineapple, a strawberry, grapes, bananas, all different kinds of fruit. And the cards cost like a combination of fruit. But at first you'll go to these cards and you'll do a worker placement action. So it might let you just take 2 fruit, like just a basic, or it might let you give someone a fruit. They have to give you 3 cards, and then you give them 3 back, any from your hand. So you're just, like, if you have something if there's something you need, you don't have, you might know that somebody has it, but you might not, and you might just want to take it, or I think they've built up enough to buy this card, and I'm going to try and screw them up a bit. But so you either go to the spot, take the worker placement spot, or you go to the spot and buy that card. So you'll buy the card, and what you do after that is then you grab another card from like a deck you haven't used, and you'll put it out there. So it's another new worker placement spot. And then until the 4 from that deck are out, then you'll grab another one. So you'll have all these new spots that you can do all these different kinds of things. And it's not like, I won't say an engine builder, because you can't have them stacked in front of you. Like you do have these cards stacked in front of you, and once you get 4, you win the game. But it's kind of neat because you have to plan, okay, well, if I'm going here, because you can't stay on the same spot that you're on. But they all do different things. The art is so cute. These animals are just adorable. And I think it'd just be a perfect game at the end of the night after you've played your heavy games. You pull out this Fabled Fruit. It's just a lighthearted game, but still has like a little bit of crunch to it with the worker placement part of it. And it's just so cute. These animals are adorable, and collecting fruit and buying cards. Buy 4, boom, you're done. Start a new one. You could play it all in one night. I mean, that would just be crazy, but I am looking forward to it. Ashley right away got on her phone, ordered one off the used site with the expansion.
Nice.
So I'm like, yeah. And so that was my number 1, Fabled Fruit.
Wonderful. There was a lot of games there, honestly.
Yeah, there was.
That was a difficult decision as to what to bring, what to leave behind. Mm-hmm. And not quite. I didn't bring quite half my collection, but I had quite a bit there. Well, it's all packed up now. I have 23 boxes full of games now that my collection's all packed up. And we had like about 8 of those at MelCon. But then everybody who came, like Michael brought a big bunch of games. So did Duncan, you guys did. So we had a lot access to a lot of games there.
We did. Yeah, it was awesome.
Perfect. Yes, good. I didn't even see that Fabled Fruit was there either. There's so many.
Yeah, Michael brought that one. I think it was Paul. It was on one of his stacks where he had wanted to teach it. And I had always kind of wanted to learn that one. I'd seen it a few times, and yeah, it was awesome.
Nice.
But yeah, it was very successful. Next year, I'm guessing it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Every year it seems to move from a house. Now it's in a hall.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Lyle was talking about, okay, next year we need to rent the multi-complex room, which is a much, much bigger venue.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I was like, oh, yeah, maybe. We'll see. I was like, I may have to recruit help then. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was great. I'm glad we did it, and I'm glad it worked out so well.
Yeah, it did. It was awesome. We had a blast. Everyone there, I think, did. Like, it was just, everyone was in good spirits. It was so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, before we end, where can we find you if someone wants to get in contact with you?
So on Instagram, I am boardgame_mama. My YouTube channel is Boardgame Mama, and my Facebook group is Boardgame Mama, and friends are playing all the games. How about you, Carla? Where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram at Boardgame Specialist, all one word, and also have a Facebook page called Red Deer Board Game Fanatics. So that will wrap up our top 9 for MelCon. I'm sure if you want to see Melanie's full MelCon, she will have an episode on YouTube eventually about the whole weekend that she has played. Yeah. And next week we are going to talk about our top 9 multi-use card games. Those are so exciting. I love multi-use card games because it's so clever to me that you can come up with a card and use it in all these kinds of ways. So look forward to that. But until then, thanks for listening, and bye.